Hi, I'm Jenny. Yeah, like in that book. But there's nothing magical about my life. Have you ever had to watch someone ruin their lives and you could do nothing about it? Please watch until the end. You'll see how helpless grown-ups can be sometimes. Let me say it straight, my family is not well off. To be more exact, we're poor. I'm used to wearing used clothes and ordering pizza only for special occasions. I'm used to heating or electricity being turned off because mom and dad can't pay the bills. But I wasn't about to live all my life like that. I had a dream of going to college, getting a super hot profession, and living like my ghetto life never had happened. But it's easier said than done. I'm not that book smart, and even though I did well in cheerleading, that wasn't enough to get a scholarship. I had less than a year of high school and was desperate. A future of working behind a counter in Walmart or McDonald's for the rest of my days didn't seem bright at all. And suddenly, my family's life changed drastically. It started with Dad being hit by a car. He wasn't hurt badly, but a son of a wealthy man was behind the wheel. His dad covered our medical expenses and then some so that we didn't sue. A little money, but still more than we'd ever had on our hands before, so my brother and I did get gifts, and my mom a new dress. My mom spent the rest of the money on lottery tickets. Nonsense, right? There were probably 1,000 tickets. Mom scraped at them like mad for a few hours. But it worked. Mom's screams woke us up, and we ran to her bedroom. She was jumping on her bed like a kid. "We won!" she screamed. "We won! We won!" The amount of money was pretty hefty, and my brother and I didn't quite believe it right away, and Dad even thought someone was messing with him when he got the call to verify it. And of course, we faced the question of what to do with the money. I wanted everything. An iPhone, new clothes, a car, an expensive purebred puppy. But I pushed all that aside, focusing on the important thing, college. As soon as I had a moment, I told my parents that I needed money to study. They exchanged looks, of course. But sure, dear, sure. I trusted them. Have your parents ever let you down? Like, really let you down big time? Share your stories in the comments. I'd like to know I'm not alone. Next day, our home got a new ice cream maker installed. Okay, I thought, why not? A cute little trifle. Still plenty in the budget for college. I didn't mind when my brother got an expensive watch and an iPad. He should be enjoying the benefits too. The fridge was stocked with Dad's favorite beer, I noticed, while Mom and Dad were out dining in one of those expensive restaurants I'd never even dreamed of going to. I felt horrible. My parents could buy a box of matches and I'd be counting how much I had left in my college fund. I was so angry. No presents brought me joy. Even my brother started avoiding me, like it was okay for everyone that the money was running out. All hell broke loose on the last day of the holidays. I woke up to some noise in the backyard and saw construction workers. Mom and Dad were ecstatic. They thought that their idea was grand. "Look, honey, we're gonna have a pool." I looked at the hole in the ground and saw a grave, not a pool. "Mom, Dad, what about my college?" I'm not proud of what happened next, but I think my parents felt even more ashamed. I only stopped screaming when Mom started crying. I still remember her words. "You're so selfish. You have your life ahead of you. What about us?" She talked about how hard it was for them with all the loans and bills and that there was no way out. And the money, they so wanted to have something good in their lives. A dinner in a posh restaurant for once, a pool like in their neighbor's house. How was I supposed to feel? I'm not heartless. I felt sorry for my parents, but this was about my future. That was taken away from me. After that, no one was happy to spend the rest of the money. Mom got another couple of hundred tickets, but all she got was $10 in a mug. Awesome. And to me, I sold some of my consolation prizes, my tablet, some purses, but it wasn't enough for college. Still, I'm going to take a gap year and move out, work a little, save up some money, and then I'll write the best admission essay ever. Tell about my family and this mad lottery. Gosh, if I'm not accepted after that, I'll go and become a stand-up comedian, and this is gonna be my best number. Life goes on after all. What do you think? Who is the selfish one here? Me or them? Let me know in the comments below what you think. Please like this story so that YouTube shows it to more people. Subscribe and don't miss out on our upcoming videos. Have a great day and may luck always be with you.
Hi, I'm Alexis and I'm 18 years old. Do you think it's difficult to manage 3 children? What if there are 4 or 6 of them? I have 10 children at the age of 18. Watch the video to the end and find out how it happened that I had a whole kindergarten. I fell in love with Benjamin at first sight, and the fact that he was already 15 years older than me didn't stop me at all. He was courting me, was so wise, courageous, and caring. My parents didn't accept my choice at first, but then they accepted it. He managed to charm them and was very serious about it. So we decided together that we would get married as soon as I turned 18. After my birthday, I was really looking forward to the moment when he would officially propose to me, but it didn't happen. Benjamin delayed the conversation because the outcome could be ambiguous, even to the point of breaking up the relationship. Indeed, it was very shocking to me. When he finally gave up, I found out something incredible. I knew he was already married, and I told him right away that I didn't care. It turned out at that time, I did not let him tell a very important detail. He had 5 children. 5! Benjamin promised that it wouldn't affect our marriage in any way. With his ex-wife, he separated peacefully, communicated with the children, visited them. Have you ever learned big secrets that shocked you? Write it in the comments. The admission stunned me. 5 children. He left the family, got a divorce. It took me a long time to come to my senses and understand. Benjamin tried to explain to me that he never gave up on children and did everything to ensure that they had a father and that they did not feel the need. He said it happened in life when a marriage couldn't be fixed. Children were better off if their parents lived separately, but were friends than together with scandals. It was not easy for me to accept all that was said, but love was stronger. I said I was ready to live with it, and very soon he proposed to me. It was very original. Friends and acquaintances involved me in a big flash mob in the final, of which I received a bouquet and a beautiful ring. The preparations for the wedding went very quickly. Benjamin took everything on himself and was in such a hurry. I guess he was afraid I'd change my mind. The celebration itself was held at home. There were only the closest relatives and friends. Unfortunately, not everyone reacted positively to my choice, but I did not need the approval of others. The main thing was that I loved him. We wanted to spend our honeymoon by the ocean, and I had already started packing my suitcase and managed to spread the news to all my friends. But Benjamin suddenly came in depressed with a face as black as a cloud and said that his ex-wife died. I threw my arms around him and began to cry. How could I comfort him, help him? But he roughly unclasped my hands and fell into a chair. In the next second, he said that he could not give the children to the adoption system. He would not forgive himself for this. I thought it was a dream, and now I would wake up and everything would be as before. But Benjamin's shoulders, shaking with tears, told me that I was not asleep. I was rebelling within myself and didn't want to take on this responsibility. But on the other hand, I promised at the altar that I would be with him, not only for better, but for worse. I agreed. Days of waiting passed. Children also needed comfort and coziness, and therefore the rooms should be prepared for their arrival. The tasks were not so simple. Where to find 5 children's beds inexpensively, how to place them, where to put a couple of cabinets, and what was there on the children's menu. The solution of these questions so fascinated me that I did not notice how several weeks flew by. But there were no children. Benjamin became a bit moody, irritable, and we started having conflicts. I didn't understand what was going on, because we had an agreement about children's relocation. Everything was ready, so what was it? Was he grieving? What if he was afraid I couldn't do it? We just started living together and our family was already on the verge of divorce, and I asked him straight out why he didn't bring the kids home. The answer knocked the ground from under my feet, and Benjamin barely managed to catch me before I hit the floor. It turned out that he and his ex-wife had 5 children of their own and 3 adopted children. 8 children. 8 children were coming to us. All this time he had hidden them so as to not frighten me anymore, and now he was dying of shame at the thought that they might end up in the adoption system again. It was a nightmare. This doesn't happen in reality and certainly doesn't happen to me. While I was trying to recover, Benjamin managed to collect some things and left me. Yes! He decided to leave me and it was his own fault. He should have told the truth right away. Was I not worthy to know the truth? How angry I was then. And I didn't feel sorry for him at all. Have you ever been angry at someone instead of being sympathetic? I didn't expect to be so indifferent. I didn't know how to respond to his leaving. To raise 8 children at 18? I was not ready for my own yet, but there were already 8. I decided to let the situation run its course and take a break from everything. Every day, I forgot myself with friends, at parties, cafes, at movies. I hadn't seen them for a long time and I missed them very much. At first, it was good because I was still so young and there were so many interests around. But after a couple of weeks, I felt a kind of emptiness and wild loneliness. Friends no longer gave me pleasure and entertainment seemed gray. I was suddenly torn off my half and now I was incomplete. I missed Benjamin terribly and I realized that I wanted to be with him. That same day, I stood on the doorstep of his ex-wife's house. I found the children and my husband in a terrible state. Dirt all around, mountains of unwashed dishes, leftovers in the corners. The children were dirty, uncombed, and sad. I immediately rushed to clean up and prepare food, although I did not know at first how much I needed to put cereals and salt to cook soup for 10. Benjamin was happy to see me back and tried to help me with everything. We needed to wash and iron laundry every day, not to mention classes with children, walks, and the eternal reconciliation of sisters with brothers. I was getting used to the routine of home life, but I was getting very tired. I could barely reach the pillow and fall asleep before my head touched it. Suddenly, we had a sick Lily. She was only 8 years old. She was hospitalized for several days with an allergy attack. Lily was crying so much. She asked me to stay with her because she was afraid of dying like her mother. It took me a long time to persuade her before I left. There were 7 more at home. My heart was breaking. At home, there was another problem. The older Billy, who was 14, ran away. The children told me that he was against my coming and called my father a traitor. While Benjamin was calling the police, I found Bill's notebook and his friends' numbers. I called one number after another until I found the right address. Billy was visiting a school friend. We raced there. Billy was angry and said he didn't want to see me and I didn't know how to handle a teenager who wasn't much younger than me. Then Benjamin hugged him and said that I would never replace his mother and that's not why I was in this house. We were family and should try to help each other. Thank God the words worked and the 3 of us returned home. But this did not bring peace to our family. The children and I got to figure each other out. They lost their mother, and their father brought home a new wife. They could be understood. But some time passed, and the younger ones called me Mom for the first time. And then, only then, did I feel that we were finally a family. Benjamin and I were over the moon. Suddenly, I felt a sharp deterioration in my health. I was sick in the morning, was tormented by weakness the whole day, My husband became concerned and made me an appointment with the doctor. The doctor said something incredible. I couldn't believe my ears and called Benjamin to the office. We were expecting twins! Twins! It turned out that our kindergarten will grow to 10 children. And you know, my husband and I are not afraid. Did you like my story? Support it with a like and subscribe to the channel.
It was the worst day of my life. Me, mom, and dad were in the courtroom. They were getting divorced. My mother sued my father for half of his money and found another man. How could she? The jury were whispering and pointing at dad. Yes, he's special. He has a rare disease. At the age of 13, he stopped growing, and he looks like a teenager all his life. They should be ashamed. To forget this nightmare, we moved. Dad, despite the fact that mother sued half of the state, continued to successfully run his business. He's awesome. I went to a private school with an emphasis on literature, and of course, on the first day, the local teacher confused my father with a schoolboy. She yelled at us like we were skipping school. The next day, my dad decided to please me. It was almost Christmas, and he brought gorgeous Christmas tree with beautiful decorations and garlands to the school hall. It looked like a jewelry boutique on the tree. When that teacher, Amber, saw dad with the tree, she immediately understood everything. She started to apologize for that yesterday's confuse. Well, of course, my kind dad made a joke of it and continued to chat with her sweetly. My dad just doesn't hold a grudge. Lucky for you, Amber. Christmas dinner was coming up and dad called the guests, though didn't say whom. I decided to show off and prepared my signature dish, a ham. The evening promised to be fabulous, but I definitely didn't expect such guests. Amber was standing in front of me with a festive ham in her hands. Is this a joke? When did she and dad get so close? I wanted to please dad with my signature ham, but he tried her dish first and even praised it. The evening was ruined. But gifts always lifted my spirits. By the fireplace, my dad handed me an expensive Parker pen that I'd been dreaming about for a long time, but I didn't dare ask for it. Cool. And Amber, dad invited her to a concert. No way! It seems that it was going to be a real date. In the evening, dad went to this concert and didn't return home at night. Did he really stay with Amber? In the early morning, dad showed up as if nothing had happened and took me to school. Amber was waiting for us in the school parking, and then I saw her, returning dad's watch. Everything was confirmed. I sadly trudged to class. When I came in, everyone was giggling, and there was a drawing of dad and Amber all over the blackboard, and it had inscriptions saying teachers in love with a youngster, so the whole school knew about it. Because of meetings with the teacher and workload, dad spent very little time with me. And finally came her special day with dad. We usually go to the mall, watch movies, shop, and have fun. Just him and I. We went to another boutique. I picked up a bunch of clothes and went to the fitting room. But when I came out, dad wasn't there. I was really scared. But a few minutes later, he returned with the kitten in his arms. I couldn't even dream of this. But of course, the gift wasn't for me. We took Fuzzy to Amber's. I was starting to hate her. I tried to tell my father that they weren't a couple, but he wouldn't listen. Amber this, Amber that. She got into her family and no one even asked me because she's perfect. No one's perfect. She opened the door all dressed up. And from her conversation with dad, I realized that they were going to a restaurant. Yeah, now I know why she's dressed up like this. I pretended to be a nice girl and offered to babysit the cat while they were at a restaurant, although I had other plans. As soon as the door closed behind them, I decided to look around. But then Fluffy began to pitifully meow. Apparently it was hungry. I decided to feed it and opened the cupboard to get food, but instead, I found a box. It was a bunch of dad's notices. Wow, our Miss Perfect was drowning in dads. I turned on Sherlock mode and went to her bedroom. There was a laptop next to her bed. I can definitely find something interesting there. Bingo! There was our sweet Amber's messages to a friend saying she really needed money. What's this? Is this a link to dad's company's website? Here you are. I heard the sound of an approaching car outside the window, but when the door opened, all I saw was Amber. Dad was called to another emergency meeting. I don't know who was more upset, me or the teacher. To give Amber her due, she played her part well, even offering to give me a ride home. She never stopped talking during the ride, and in the end, she suddenly gave out that she loved my dad. What kind of a liar was she? I told her what I thought and ran away. I was so disgusted. I tossed and turned all night, and I don't even remember when I fell asleep. In the morning, I was woken up by the smell of fresh pancakes. I ran to the kitchen without even changing my pajamas. I haven't seen my dad this happy in a long time. When I asked what time he came back, it turned out that he hadn't spent the night at home again. He was out with Amber all night, and then I exploded. I told him that she only wanted money from him. I wanted to tell him about the debts and loans, but he abruptly cut me off. It was the first time I'd seen my father so angry. He said that he understood that I decided to come up with some hooey about Amber out of jealousy, and sternly added that I better not get involved in adult matters that I don't understand yet. I couldn't hold back my tears. But Dad, what about... He came up to his senses and began to speak more softly, but I didn't back down. I kept saying she was trying to trick him. I had just started talking about the messages when Dad said that Amber and I needed to get to know each other, and we were all going to paintball together. Well, perfect. We ran into Amber's ex on the paintball field. You should have seen her face at that moment. Her ex began to bully my dad, calling him a baby and child. How dare he? Amber immediately answered him and he blushed and left. For a second, I even respected her, but only for a second. I've seen all the evidence. And I shot Amber, but I accidentally hit her in the head. I did want it, but she immediately left, saying that she had to teach someone extra classes. We didn't play anymore because Dad was in a bad mood. I felt guilty and tried to apologize, but he interrupted me and said that I had disappointed him. It hurt me. The next day I came to school in a bad mood, but my stupid classmates jumped on me right from the doorway. Like, I got an A in literature because I'm now the teacher's favorite. Were they even serious? I couldn't bear it and ran away into the hall. Someone was yelling in the principal's office. I overheard, and I think the principal was scolding Amber for the rumors that were going around about her. A minute later, Amber came out crying. Yeah, I wasn't the only one who got sick of it. She came over and offered a truce for my father, at least for a week. The thing was that Dad had a birthday in a week, and Amber wanted to throw a surprise at her house that Dad and I were supposed to attend. I did want to put up with her, but it was a great chance to establish a relationship with Dad and show him the messages, so I agreed. On the eve of his birthday, I prepared a special gift for my father. A poem. Dad kinda thought out a little, and when I said I also wanted to apologize to Amber for that shot, he was really happy. It was a big surprise. Amber had all Dad's colleagues and friends in the house. When did she get to know them? While everyone was hanging out, I slipped away to look for a laptop with a cherished chat. I just found it and was about to leave when I bumped into Amber at the door. She saw the laptop in my hands and immediately started clucking. Like you can't break into someone else's room like that. Blah blah. Did you have the right to break into my life? Dad came running at the noise, barely restraining my joy. I showed him the chat. See, Dad, I told you, all she wants from you is money. You should have seen the teacher's face. She blushed, confessed her debts and loans, and said she didn't want to involve him in her problems. She can handle everything on her own. Yes, of course. Sure, we believed you. But my father said he believed her. He closed the laptop without even looking at the chat and explained that Amber was in a difficult situation. Again, that dry tone, as if we were strangers. I couldn't stand it any longer and ran away. I hate Amber. Even at home, I couldn't hide from this snake. Dad used their picture as a wallpaper on his laptop. I had to do something. And then I got an idea. It may be cruel, but I decided to leak a photo of Dad and Amber kissing on the internet from an anonymous account. Let everyone think that the teacher seduced the student. I think neither the school nor the authorities will be happy about this. And Amber will get punished. Yes, Dad, I used your illness, but it's for your own good. I'm sorry. In the morning, I was wildly embarrassed and left for school early. There was a chaos. The photos spread all over the city. Journalists and police arrived. Was she really going to jail? Suddenly, Dad appeared. When he saw the crowd, he asked what was the matter. A minute later, the police were escorting Amber out. She looked very confused and I couldn't look her in the eye. Dad still didn't understand what had happened. While we were waiting for Amber at the station, my shocked dad was reading an article on the internet where there was a photo of him and Amber with the headline, "Photo of a teacher kissing a teenager turned out to be fake." He couldn't understand who could have done such a cruel thing to him, and I was embarrassedly silent. Soon, Amber was released. The cop asked her if she would file a libel complaint, but she refused. She knew I was behind it, though. I was afraid that she would tell father, but all Amber told Dad was that they needed to break up, and then she quickly left. After that, Dad called her and even came to her place, but she ignored him. Dad got depressed and was all because of me. Did he really fall in love with her? I brought up the chat theme once again, and then I found out the truth. It turns out that Amber didn't need the money. She wrote about her mother, who needed an expensive surgery, and she had already gotten loans when Amber and Dad got together, so it turns out that her feelings were sincere. I tried to find Amber at school to apologize, but the scandal was so big that she was fired. I steeled myself to tell my dad the truth. I was the one who did it, and I was the one who made Amber leave Dad. I'd never spoken so sincerely in my life as I did at that moment. Dad was in shock, but most importantly, he forgave me. He immediately called Amber, and we found out that she was going to fly to Seattle. Her flight was today, and we rushed to the airport. There were only 5 minutes left before the boarding was over. But we made it! Amber heard me and Dad calling her name. She dropped her tickets and ran into Dad's arms. And then without a word, they hugged me. And then I realized that she wasn't my enemy, and my desire to protect my dad was actually jealousy. We've been living together ever since. Amber and I had a lot in common. For example, love for cats, hams, and of course, for Dad. Quite a nice set, isn't it, Fuzzy? Sat in the hospital room and able to hold back my tears. My mom was in a coma for a week and the doctors didn't make any predictions. And all of this because of a stupid video in TikTok. Suddenly, behind the glass door of the room, I saw a little girl in a bright dress who was circling around her parents. A lump rose in my throat. I remember dancing with my mom and dad when I was a kid. It seemed that our family was perfect then. But one day, Dad left us. After he left, Mom and I were desperately short of money, and she had to find a second job. We practically stopped seeing each other, and I felt so alone. One day, Mom was so exhausted that she forgot about my birthday, and I cried all night. And in the morning, I decided that I couldn't go on like this any longer. I had to find some money so that Mom didn't have to work so hard anymore. Only how to do it. After all, I had no special talents, and it never worked out with part-time jobs no matter how much I tried. And suddenly, I got an idea. I could shoot videos for TikTok, get to the top, and earn a lot of money. I started a channel and started posting videos, but they didn't even get 10 views. I was desperate. But one night, everything changed. I was late coming home from school that day. I was so tired. To stay awake on the way, I looked through the TikTok feed. Now there were some crazy dances in the top. And then, as I approached my house, I heard loud music. I was startled and quickened my pace. What's going on? Mom would never have turned it on. I opened the door and saw a dancing silhouette in the middle of the room. Mom? She was rocking in front of the TV, moving to the beat of some Brazilian song. Mom danced better than all the bloggers I saw today. She was so engrossed that she didn't even notice me. What if... Then I opened TikTok and started filming her. Mom, you're just a beauty. I even wanted to join in. But no, I was too exhausted today. When I went up to my room, I immediately fell on the bed. As I was falling asleep, I thought that my mother would be angry if she knew that I had posted that video. I would delete it right away in the morning. The sound of notifications jerked me out of my sleep. Sleepily, I picked up the phone and just couldn't believe my eyes. Hundreds of new followers. I felt dizzy. Then I went into the TikTok trends and saw my video with Mom in the first place. But how? Mom became the star of TikTok for the night? There were a lot of messages and one of them was from a producer of top TikTok stars. Maybe it was a prank, but the profile was real. The producer said he was looking for new faces and asked if I could film my mother's dancing on a permanent basis. My God. Mom would kill me if she found out. But on the other hand, there was nothing wrong with dancing. Hesitantly, I said I could. A minute later, the producer sent a reply. Great, I'm waiting for the video in 2 days. In the meantime, take the advantage. In the next second, $1,000 were on my card. Wow, I had never had so much money in my life. And then I got a new notification. Wow. Sweetie, Claire, one of the famous TikTokers of our city, befriended me. She wrote that she was inviting me to her party. But I immediately hung my head. I didn't have any clothes for this. Claire had impeccable taste. I thought about it. Hesitantly, I texted her. With pleasure. But maybe we should go shopping together first. Of course. Cool idea. She replied, wow, I would go shopping with sweetie Claire herself. At noon, we met at the mall. At first, it was so awkward. I felt like a mousy girl next to such a cool girl. But then I relaxed. We bought everything we liked. And it was so cool. True, Claire said that she forgot her card at home, but I had no problem paying for her purchases. But when I got home, I saw that there were only $2 left in the account. Damn, the advance was over so fast. It was necessary to film a new video as soon as possible, and then the producer would send more money. I ran into the living room. My mother had just come home from work, and she looked tired. She was very surprised when I asked her to dance. Please, Mom, you were so hot last night. But my mother suddenly blushed. She thought no one had seen her. Haltingly, she said that she had allowed herself to drink too much, but it would not happen again. And what to do now? The producer was waiting for my new TikTok video. But then I thought of Claire. She was a popular TikToker. Maybe she had some ideas. I dialed Claire. Burning with embarrassment, I told her about the problem. My mother was dancing because she was drunk, and she didn't want to do it again. Claire was silent, but suddenly she had an idea. I needed to get my mom drunk, and then she would start rocking, and I would record it all on video. I felt uneasy at the suggestion. This was despicable. But Claire suddenly said that it wasn't a crime. In addition, I could get her drunk just once. And then just cut the video into many small videos. So I would have enough material for a whole month. Claire, you're a genius. But how do I buy a drink? Claire told me not to worry. She'd think of something. I still couldn't believe that such a popular girl supported me. A few hours later, Claire came to me with a bottle of whiskey. I stole it from my brother. She explained. I was glad that there was a chance to make a video on time. But inside, I still thought, what if this was wrong? But I tried to bring about. Mom would forgive me when I earned a lot of money. After all, she would no longer have to work all day. Claire and I hid a camera on the refrigerator, and as soon as Mom came, I immediately suggested that she try the new whiskey-flavored tea. While she was washing her hands, I made the usual tea, and was about to pour the whiskey, but my hand froze in indecision. What was I doing? If I didn't make up my mind now, it would be too late. With trembling hands, I quickly poured the alcohol into a cup and rushed to my room. Claire was already watching my mom through the monitor. Mom sat down, picked up the cup, and took a sip. My knees were shaking. What if she realized it was real whiskey? But Mom continued to drink. After a while, she pushed the cup away and started flipping through something on her phone. Damn, it wouldn't work. We needed a plan B. Then I noticed the Bluetooth speaker on the windowsill. Exactly. I connected it to my phone and turned on the music. Mom smiled and began to move her foot in time to the melody. But this was not enough in desperation. I turned on the same Brazilian song that my mom danced to for the first time. And suddenly Mom got up and let her hair down. I couldn't believe it. She started dancing. Mom, you're unreal. Claire also smiled happily, and when we had already filmed through, she said that she would edit everything and release it herself. What would I do without you, Claire? The new video went viral the next day. Hundreds of people in TikTok tagged my account. The producer said that he would transfer more money soon, but I needed to keep that up. I came home from school in a great mood, but as soon as I entered the house, I heard sobs. Mom? She was sitting on the couch, tears streaming down her cheeks. What happened? Mom said that they wanted to fire her because her drunken dancing undermined the reputation of the company. Mom didn't understand at all. A lump rose in my throat. God, I had to admit. Through my tears, I told her about the video in TikTok. Mom, it was all my fault. She immediately jumped up and said that trick had ruined her whole life. Then she grabbed her bag and ran outside. I ran after her. I'm sorry. Please. Suddenly, I saw a car coming around the corner. My stomach went cold. Mom, stop! The car braked abruptly, but it was too late. The impact knocked Mom down. I ran to her, trembling with fear. The driver had already called an ambulance, and tears were streaming down my cheeks. It was all because of those stupid videos. I spent the next 24 hours in the hospital at her bedside. I didn't know what would happen next, but in the evening, I suddenly felt Mom squeeze my hand. Was she awake? Barely moving her lips. Mom whispered to me to delete those videos, and again, fell silent. Mommy, I promise I'll do it. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and logged into my profile, but suddenly I was thrown out of the account. I was surprised, but I entered the password again. An error. What's the matter? Then I saw that a new video with Mom's dance appeared in my profile. I was taken aback. How was this possible? After all, no one had access to the account except me and Claire. I gave her the password myself so that she would release the edited videos. Everything inside me collapsed. Did she take my account and now she was messaging with the producer? I thought we were friends. I immediately ran to Claire, and when she went outside, I blurted out that she had to delete the video. Claire raised her eyebrows and said I was the first one to release my mom's drunken dance. I didn't seem to care about her reputation back then. How dare she? I lunged at Claire, snatched the phone from her, and ran down the street. Just as I was about to delete the entire video, a message came to Claire's phone from the producer. You'll be a millionaire in a month, he wrote. I would definitely become one. But now I was concerned about something else, the health of my mom. At the same time, I deleted my profile on TikTok along with all the videos. Oddly, it made me feel relieved. Claire kept shouting after me, but I just called a taxi and went to the hospital. I so wanted mom to come to her senses. I was sitting next to her bed and I was startled by a sharp sound on the devices. What happened? Was mom getting worse? Excited? I ran for the doctor, but when we returned, we saw that mom came to her senses. My heart was bursting with joy. In tears, I ran to her and begged her to forgive me, and suddenly a man with flowers appeared in the doorway. For a moment, I was taken aback. Dad? He sat down next to my mother, took her hand, and asked for forgiveness. I couldn't believe. Did he decide to return? Dad said he was a fool to leave us. And there wasn't a day when he didn't regret it. And when he saw the rousing video on TikTok with mom, he realized how much he loved her and wanted to return. Mom smiled even more and said that now she would dance even more. And she wouldn't need alcohol for that. I couldn't believe I'd almost lost mom in the pursuit of someone else's love. I promised myself that my family would always come first, and I gave my parents a big hug. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vanessa and I'm 16 years old. Tell me, have you ever regretted where you were born and who your parents were? Would you have liked to have a choice before you were born? I'd give anything for that. A lot of people are unlucky in life, and I've been unlucky since I was born. Watch this video to the end and you will learn how after being born into a poor family, you can become the president of your country. I was born in a very poor family. My parents barely had enough to eat, so they spent all their time at work. My mother was a cleaner at a local hospital for the poor, and my father was a parking attendant at a supermarket. There was no money for school, so I was entrusted with the upbringing of my younger brother. We lived in a poor neighborhood, and it seemed that everyone was happy with everything except me. People didn't want to change anything and were content with what they had, and that made it even worse. My peers did not want to learn. They just wandered around the street doing nothing and engaged in petty theft. That's why I didn't have much contact with them. And I spent all my free time reading books that I found in a landfill and watching news and political programs on TV. I had always been interested in that. Therefore, I try to understand the topic so that one day I would stand in power and change inequality in society. My younger brother, Richard, didn't share my love of politics and change. I kept telling him not to mess with the bad guys, but Richard never listened to me and joined a local gang of hooligans. When one gets everything and you get nothing? One day, the police called us and told us that he was at their station. When we got there, we found him sitting behind bars. He didn't want to tell us what happened, but the police officer told us. It turned out that his so-called friends persuaded him to help with the theft of a phone. When an expensive car was passing by, they pretended that one of them had been run over. And while the driver was figuring out what was going on, Richard had to steal the phone from the car. But the driver understood and caught Richard, and his friends ran away. The police let my brother go, but my parents had to pay all the money we had. I was incredibly angry with my brother. I warned him. He knew how difficult life was for us. So when he came to apologize, I turned away from him and decided not to talk to him anymore. Let him live as he liked if he didn't listen to my advice. It was evening. As always, I was watching a political program when I suddenly heard my parents talking. Neighbors had already given the second child to an orphanage because there was nothing to feed them with. It was cruel to the child. Why couldn't he live with his parents? And why wouldn't anyone give them some money so they could get their children back? It was at this moment that I heard the president's speech on the news. She announced a competition for aspiring journalists. It was necessary to write a socially significant article on one of the most important topics of our time. And the best part was that anyone could participate. I knew immediately that I had to participate.
Finally, I would be able to prove myself, achieve something, and get out into the world. And most importantly, the winner would receive a monetary reward. This meant that I could move to a nicer neighborhood and start my life with a clean slate. I decided to write an article on social inequality. The deadline was 1 month, so I threw myself into the work. My parents couldn't keep track of my brother because of work, so they told me not to fill my head with useless articles and dreams, but to help around the house. It made me angry. How could they think so narrowly? I told them that working for a penny was useless and we needed to act decisively if we wanted to change something. A month passed. I gave up on them, on my brother, on the house, and I was busy with my article all the time. During this time, the neighbors gave another child to a shelter, and this was the last straw. I finally decided that I could no longer stay in this terrible place, and in my head I already imagined a nice house, nice neighbors, and a refrigerator full of food. When I finished the article, I went to the admissions office to submit it for review. I could have used a computer, but I didn't have one. And there, it turned out terrible. To participate in the competition, you didn't just need to submit an article, we needed to go public with it, with a witness. I used the case of Richard as an example in my article, so he could be the only witness. But I hadn't spoken to him in over a month. During this time, he began to communicate with those guys again and completely went out of hand. But I decided to try. I went up to him and asked him to be my witness. But instead of helping, I got a conviction. He became indignant and thought that I wanted to tell everyone about his shameful crime. But it was his own fault, wasn't it? What difference would it make if he embarrassed himself or not, if it helped me? When he heard this, he took offense and ran away from home. Have you ever used your loved ones for your own purposes? I had been looking for him for days, but to no avail. Desperate, I decided to go to the police for help. And when I got there, I saw a terrible picture. My brother was back in prison. But this time, he was bruised and covered in blood. Terrified, I grabbed the bars and asked what had happened. But he sat in a corner and said nothing. Then the police officer said that Richard tried to steal equipment in a household store, but the guards caught him and beat him. I begged the captain to let my brother out, but the captain said no money, no freedom. All I could do was go home. And there was an unexpected surprise waiting for me. My article was approved and I made it to the final, which was today. I immediately ran to the contest. On the way, I realized that I was in my beggar's clothes with disheveled hair and not washed. When I got there, I tried to clean myself up, but it didn't get any better. There were rich kids in the competition, and they made me look like trash. It was my turn. I went to the podium and started reading my article. I was ashamed of the way I looked and the fact that my only witness was sitting in the police station, so I tried not to look in the crowd. I didn't want to see people judging and laughing at me. I felt so sorry for myself that I couldn't stand it and decided to just tell my life story. About a poor family, about neighbors, about a brother in prison. I didn't care about the contest anymore. I just wanted to talk. After finishing the story, the audience stood up and began to applaud me for a long time. And in the end, I won because I spoke from the heart and noticed what others did not notice. After all, unlike others, I knew firsthand about social inequality, so the topic was very close to me. After receiving the money, I immediately ran home. Along the way, I imagined packing up, moving to another area, buying a house there, going to university, and how my life became beautiful. But when I entered the house, I saw my parents sobbing with grief. My brother urgently needed surgery. During the beating, he got a concussion and blood got into his brain. But we already spent all the money on buying him out the first time. So the only way out was to move out of the apartment on the street and give the money for rent to the operation. At that moment, I realized that how could I change the whole world if I couldn't deal with problems in my family and neighborhood? So I gave part of the money to get my brother released for treatment in the hospital, and I gave the other part to the neighbors to take their children, making them promise that they would find work and feed their sons. I was back in the same position as I was in the beginning, without money or changes. But I wasn't going to give up. I gathered all my peers and asked them to help clear the area of garbage so that it did not look like a garbage dump. It was the only thing I could do. Surprisingly, the kids agreed. We spent a whole week doing it with the sweat of our brows. A local newspaper noticed this and wrote an article about how poor teenagers helped the state on their own initiative. So the authorities found out about our activities and allocated money for work. After this article, the kids started calling me our president. That's when I realized that to fix the whole world, you first need to start with yourself and your environment. After all, they are the world that surrounds me. I took care of my brother's upbringing and offered him and his gang to clean up garbage in the area for a small fee, so that they would not even have thoughts of stealing. They agreed with pleasure because they had never been paid before. I was invited to work as a journalist for a local student newspaper. They read the article that I prepared for the contest and they liked it very much. So now, I will earn money and help my family. If you like the video, please like and subscribe to our channel. And remember to start small.
Hello everyone, my name is Chloe. I am 15 years old. Did your parents ever tell you what to do, who to be friends with, and who to communicate with? Mine decide everything for me. Watch this video to the end and you will learn how my folks planned my life for 10 years ahead and how I destroyed these plans. We have a safe and happy family, I guess. I thought so, but it's not accurate. I go to a regular school. My whole day is planned out by the minute. Do you think I want to have more time? You did not guess. This all is about my folks. After school, ballroom dancing session. My mother says a real lady should be able to waltz. I'm not much of a lady, but she is my mother. After the dance, French lessons. My dad wants me to be a polyglot, so it will be kind of easy for me to get a job at any major international firm. Only, I don't bother about work yet. I'm only 15. But he's dad. Do your folks decide who you will be in the future? My mother also sleeps and sees me getting married and becoming the perfect housewife. What the hell is she talking about? I haven't even finished school yet. But my mother has already found a husband for me. That is Ethan, 17 years old, the son of my mom's friend. We chat with him when our folks gather for Sunday barbecues. He's not my type at all. But who cares? Yes, my folks kind of love me and care about my future, but it started to bother me. The school year is finally over. I passed all the tests perfectly, and my parents gave me a super gift. They sent me to camp for the whole summer. That's where I made friends with Vicky. She was also 15, and we immediately found a common language. She was cool. She could skate and draw graffiti. Vicky used to troll me when my parents called me. Her parents didn't control her that much. She decided what to do. I envied her. She had complete freedom. Vicky was always up with something. Once we painted the wall of our building with bright graffiti. When we finished drawing, the manageress came up to us and said that the director wanted to talk to us. Uh-oh, that meant we were in trouble. The director was furious, called us juvenile delinquents, and immediately told about it to our folks. My parents came right over, apologized, paid for the repairs of the wall, and picked me up. They could not believe that their decent daughter was involved in such a dark story. My mother forbade me to communicate with Vicky because she had kind of a bad influence on me. Damn, I didn't have any friends. I was done. I spent the rest of the summer in the city. It was depressing. I learned French and went to dance classes, and my mother signed me up for a sewing class, as if I could use it. Damn, it was summer outside and I was loaded with lessons. Was I a robot or what? One day, we were dismissed from dancing lessons early. Hooray! At least something went wrong and I had half an hour of respite. I came out of the dance class and saw Vicky. You couldn't do better. It turned out that she also attended the school, only hip-hop lessons. I complained to her about my parents. Vicky offered to bail on them, turned off my phone, and we went for a walk. I adored her. We wandered around the city for several hours. And I was cool. I did what I wanted and completely spontaneously. To hell with the plans. When it got dark, I turned on my cell phone and I had 20 missed messages from my folks. 20! Carl! I was going to get a good thrashing, but it was worth it. My parents were beside themselves. Like I was selfish and they were worried about me. What had I done? I was just walking. I had a vacation. My mother locked me in my room as a punishment. For what? At night, a message came from Vicky with an invitation to tomorrow's hip-hop party to her friends. How the hell was I supposed to get there? My parents were mad at me and wouldn't let me go. I told my mom in the morning that I really missed Ethan and wanted to meet him. Have you ever deceived your parents? My mom said yes, and my dad drove me to Ethan's house. When Dad left, I immediately rushed to Vicky's party. It was cool. Everyone danced hip-hop, the guys rapped. I met a nice guy. In short, the party was a success. I called my parents and told them I was staying at Ethan's and would take a taxi home. My parents said okay, and I relaxed. I hung out for another hour and went home. Didn't I get burned? But there was a surprise waiting for me at home. Think it's nice? No such luck. My parents, Ethan's parents, and Ethan himself were sitting in the living room, face palm. It was obvious to everyone that I hadn't come back from Ethan's. My folks demanded an explanation. And I admitted that I was tired and decided to hang out with my friend Vicky and relax. My parents were furious and shouted at me. I was kind of ungrateful and all that. And I told them to get lost with their plans. How many times could I be their puppet? Then everyone went to bed, and in the morning they calmed down. At breakfast, my folks offered to go and relax with the whole family in nature. I supported this idea. We could use a rest. And we went into the woods. Well, I thought so. But suddenly, instead of the forest, we were at the gate of a building. It was a closed private school. What the hell? My parents told me that I needed to be urgently isolated from harmful contacts with the outside world, so I would spend my last year of education in a closed school. This was their next brilliant idea, damn it! I begged my folks not to leave me in this prison, but they didn't hear me. They took my phone and left. How do you like it? I was completely isolated and didn't know anyone. I was killed, but what could I do? In the room with me lived a girl, Annie. She was also 15. I was in a bad mood and didn't really want to talk to her, but she had a phone. I needed it. I wrote to Vicky that I was in this prison and I needed to be rescued urgently. I waited for an answer, but Vicky seemed to ignore me. So much for a friend. Vicky's silence upset me, and I decided to spend more time with Annie as a distraction. Annie gave me a tour of the school. We played ping pong, board games, and rehearsed a dance for the fall ball. A whole month had passed without my noticing, and I had already kicked back and was not waiting for Vicky's response, and I began to like school. It wasn't so bad. Oh, I'd rather start school. I already missed it. But one night, I was awakened by a rustling in my room.
It was Vicky and the guy from the party. What were they doing here? I wrote to Vicky a month ago. She could at least say hi to me. Vicky didn't answer me, supposedly because of the conspiracy, and she spent the whole month plotting an escape. But who needed it now? Vicky said I'd been brainwashed and dragged me out of bed. I pushed her away and she fell to the floor, tripping over a chair, and her hand grazed a cup from the bedside table, the sound of which interested the guards. They called the police, and it was a failure. An hour later, they arrived at the station, scared and nervous. My mother almost had a heart attack. I wrote an explanation and took all the blame. I was the one who had called Vicky to save me. In short, we were all released, thank God. I went back to school, but I was expelled because of the incident. And this was sad. My parents and I went home. My folks scolded me all the way. They were dissatisfied with my behavior. I got used to it and listened stupidly, but when we got home, I couldn't stand it and started crying. My mother started crying too and hugged me. Dad began to calm us down, and in the end we were hugging and kissing. My parents said they had missed me very much. I missed them too, to be honest. They are my folks, after all. My parents surprised me at breakfast. It's a good thing I was sitting on a chair. My mother said that they discussed everything with my father, and now I could decide what to do outside of school. There was a senior class coming up, and they didn't want to press hard on me. Wow, it turns out that I have normal, understanding folks. I decided that I would continue dancing, but change style. Who is dancing ballroom dances now? Well, I'll finish my French course. You never know. What if I rush to Europe after school? If my story resonates with you, please like and subscribe to my channel.